We can replace you tomorrow. HR laughed during my performance review, twirling a pen like a baton. Fresh graduates would kill for your role. Something inside me clicked into place. Not rage, clarity. I set my shoulders, slid the envelope I'd brought across the table, and said, "Fine, then find someone else." His smirk faltered. "What's this?" "My resignation," I said, effective immediately. "And there's an attachment he didn't bother to look. Security will escort you to collect your things." I stood without trembling. 7 years of early mornings and midnight fixes will teach you how to move with steady hands. 7 years of building a system that caught what other people's eyes forgot. 7 years of telling the truth nobody wanted to hear until ignoring it became expensive, replaceable. The word sat between us like a dare. The conference room's fluorescent lights were unflattering to everyone, but they were particularly cruel to the easy confidence on his face. I'd seen that look too many times. People who think process is a spreadsheet, rather than the thin line between safety and catastrophe. I took the copy of my resignation from the table and tapped the second page. "That attachment matters." He made a show of sighing. "We'll manage, Mandy." Security walked me to my desk as if I might pocket a server on the way out. I fit my life into a cardboard box. Photos, a coffee mug, the old lucky screwdriver my dad gave me when I was 16. "Because the smallest turns decide what runs and what fails," he'd said. He was a mechanic, not a philosopher, but sometimes there's no difference. I paused at the door to the lab. My lab. The place where I'd built the anomaly detection sequences, where temperature, vibration, and timing were not numbers, but sentences telling me when a device was lying. There were rules in those sequences and exceptions to the rules, and a rhythm you could feel only after breaking it 100 times and listening to the music of the fix. I'd tried to teach that music. I was told to simplify it into bullet points. Outside, the wind carried the smell of rain and hot asphalt. Freedom and ache tangled in my chest. On impulse, I turned my phone to silent. No last minute please. No quick questions. I put the box in my trunk and let the door thud shut on 7 years. I drove without a destination, the city sliding past like a tape I'd already watched. Everyone thinks the moment you quit is pure triumph. They don't tell you about the hollow afterward, the echo of routines you no longer own. I ended up at Riverside Park, the place I went on the rare days when lunch meant sunlight and not a keyboard. Ducks skimmed the surface of the water in clean, purposeful lines. No drama, just motion that made sense. That's what I've always chased. Motion that makes sense. I didn't plan on this job. When my marriage collapsed, I needed something close enough to my daughter's school and predictable enough to shop for groceries without doing calculus. Quality control sounded simple. It wasn't. It was triage and prophecy and humility. It was crawling inside a system until you felt where it would betray itself. It was telling managers that a green light wasn't green, and then proving it on the floor while a production schedule glared at you like a stopwatch. I learned who listened. More importantly, I learned who pretended to. My phone buzzed against the bench slat. Then again. I let it vibrate until it stopped. The silence that followed was loud. For the first time in years, nothing was my problem. The thought felt reckless and a little indecent, like laughing at a funeral. Still, a smile tugged at my mouth. Replaceable? Sure. I drove home while the sky soaked itself and wrung out over the windshield. By the time I reached my building, Georgia from the front desk had a package waiting. "You look lighter," she said, eyeing my empty hands. "Just shedding an old skin," I told her. Up in my apartment, I set the box on the kitchen table and stared at it as if it might hiss. I poured tea, then finally checked my phone. 23 missed calls, 36 texts. The previews read like a chorus line breaking step. "Can you confirm the release parameters for the cardiac monitors? Mandy, QA is flagging everything. Did you change the sequence? Hey, where's the final validation log? We can't run the script. Urgent. Board wants to know why pass rates dropped 40% in 1 hour. Mandy, please pick up. Maya, production. I leaned against the counter, the kettle clicking as it cooled. They hadn't opened the attachment. If they had, they'd know the validation log rotated based on 3 thresholds and that the pass-fail window contracted when the calibration drifted. They'd know the update I rolled last month needed a 2-step initialization, or else the alarms would see ghosts where there were none and miss the thing that bites. They'd know the system worked. They'd know how to listen to it. I scrolled to an email from HR. Short, crisp, a template trying to pass as a human. We acknowledge your resignation. Your access will be terminated EOD. Please return all company property. No mention of the second page. No attachment received. A second email followed. Same sender, less confident. Mandy, quick question. Where can we find the updated anomaly thresholds? I put my phone down and let the quiet stretch. Somewhere across town, someone was finally opening a PDF labeled Transition Protocol. Read before touching anything. Somewhere, a team was ignoring it while a manager asked for workarounds. Somewhere, green lights were turning yellow and no one knew why. Is this cruel? The question found me before the guilt did. Then I remembered what kindness had looked like in that conference room. A laugh. A pen. The word replaceable tossed like confetti. Kindness isn't letting people treat your expertise like air. It's making sure the air keeps the people who need it alive. My tea steamed in a soft ribbon. I raised the mug to my lips and let the heat settle my throat. Out of habit, I opened my laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank page that asked what I wanted next. For the first time in years, I didn't have to answer right away. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail, breathless. Mandy, it's Maya. We can't ship. Everything's failing on final. This doesn't make sense. Please, just tell me where to start. I close my eyes. The smallest turns decide what runs and what fails. They said they could replace me tomorrow. By the end of today, the department would prove them wrong. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my kitchen floor, but my phone's screen was already glowing with chaos. 47 missed calls, 61 texts, 3 voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. I scrolled through them slowly, sipping coffee as if I had all the time in the world. System stuck in fail loop. Can't override. Production has stopped completely. We need you back, Mandy. If you're there, please call me. This is urgent. A message from HR caught my eye. Please confirm the details of the attachment you mentioned. It seems we can't locate it in our system. Of course they couldn't. I imagined Devin, head of HR, smug as always, tossing my resignation letter aside the second I'd left the room. He wouldn't have noticed the neatly labeled PDF stapled behind it. Or maybe he had noticed and assumed it was fluff. That was his specialty, treating anything technical as if it were paperwork. I opened my laptop. Notifications flashed from LinkedIn, a few recruiter messages I'd ignored for years. My resume hadn't been updated since before my divorce. I should have felt nervous, staring at a blank professional future. Instead, I felt strangely steady. At 9 sharp, my phone rang again. This time, it was Maya from production. Her voice trembled when I answered. Mandy, please. We can't ship. Every validation sequence is rejecting clean units. Engineering says the thresholds are corrupted. Devin's blaming us and the board is furious. What did you change? Nothing corrupted, I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. The system's working exactly the way it's supposed to. Then why are we failing everything? Because you're not following the protocols. Silence hummed at the other end. Then Maya whispered, The attachment? Yes. Her breath caught. Devin told us it was irrelevant. I almost laughed. Then he was wrong. I hung up before she could say more. Around noon, someone knocked on my door. It wasn't security this time. It was Jordan from engineering, hair messy, shirt untucked, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He held a laptop under one arm. Please, he said, skipping any preamble. We've been at it all night. Nothing works. You left instructions, right? Can you just Walk me through them? I stepped aside and he set the laptop on my table. I didn't invite him to sit. Show me what you've been doing. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up test results. Error after error flashed red. We reset thresholds, we recalibrated sensors, we even brought in an external auditor. They couldn't figure it out either. It's like the system is speaking another language. It is, I said quietly. My language. Jordan rubbed his face. You built it. You can fix it. I shook my head. I built it, yes. But it's documented. Thoroughly. If you'd read the attachment, you'd know how to tune the system in stages, not all at once. You'd know that failing units trigger a hidden baseline recalibration. That's why everything looks broken now. It's adapting, waiting for the human hand it trusts to reset it. His jaw tightened. So you're saying none of us can do it? I'm saying none of you are willing to learn. After he left, I sat with the quiet for a long time. My father's voice echoed in memory. The smallest turns decide what runs and what fails. He'd said it when I was 16, handing me a rusted carburetor. He meant machines, but it applied to people too. Devin's smallest turn, a laugh, a dismissal, ignoring a second page, was now collapsing an entire department. By late afternoon, my inbox was full of offers to return as a consultant. The rates doubled with each email. HR tried flattery first. We value your expertise and want to discuss a more strategic role. Then, urgency. Production losses are mounting by the hour. Please respond immediately. Then, desperation. Name your price. Anything. Just come back. Each message filled me with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. They thought they could replace me tomorrow. Today, they couldn't even replace me for an hour. That evening, I took a walk by the river. The air smelled of wet earth and spring leaves. My phone buzzed, but I ignored it, letting the vibration fade against my leg. Families strolled past with ice creams, couples laughed, joggers kept pace with the fading sun. I felt a strange mix of envy and relief. For so long, I'd been defined by crises, always the one to fix what others broke. Now the crisis wasn't mine. I had a choice. When I returned home, a voicemail waited. This one wasn't from HR or engineering. It was from Alan, the company president. His voice was rough, tired. Mandy, I only just learned about your resignation. Devin failed to inform me until today. I need to speak with you directly. Please, for the sake of the company, call me back. For the first time, I hesitated. Alan wasn't Devin. He'd once thanked me personally for catching a flaw in a shipment that could have bankrupted them. He wasn't perfect, but he'd listened. Still, the truth was simple. I'd given them the chance to respect me. They laughed instead. I set my phone face down and whispered to the empty apartment. They'll read the attachment when they're ready. And when they did, they'd finally understand how irreplaceable I truly was. Alan called again just after breakfast, and this time I picked up. His voice sounded older than I remembered. Sandpaper over something fragile. Mandy, thank you. I won't waste your time. I need you back. Today. Not permanently. As a consultant, name a fair day rate. There it was. The word I'd never heard from them. Fair. I'm not coming back as staff, I said. If I come, it's one day. My rate, my conditions. Understood, he said quickly. What are they? No meetings with HR, no interference. I speak directly to production and engineering, and I make the call on what ships and what doesn't. Also, whoever replaces me gets the documentation I already wrote. Unaltered. Alan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. Agreed. And Mandy, I'm sorry. I should have known sooner. Let's not do that part, I said gently. Send the contract. I'll review it when I get there. I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the black screen. I didn't feel triumphant. If anything, I felt stern, like a parent who finally stops explaining and lets the stove teach the lesson. I chose a navy blazer, tied my hair back, and tucked my dad's old screwdriver into my bag. Not for show, for balance. The smallest turns. At the building, the guard who'd watched me leave 2 days earlier looked startled. Back already? Not back, I said. Visiting. He handed me a visitor badge like it might explode. Alan met me in the lobby with a manila folder. No entourage, no theatrics. His tie was crooked. His eyes were rimmed red. The contract, he said. Day rate as requested. Direct report to me for the day. Authority on QA decisions. I scanned it. Clean enough. Add this, I said, circling a clause. My documentation goes to production, engineering, and QA today. No filtering. No summaries. He nodded, already texting legal. We walked to the lab. The silence had a shape to it, like a room after an argument. Maya stood at a bench surrounded by failed units, sleeves rolled, jaw set. When she saw me, relief and embarrassment wrestled on her face. Morning, I said. Let's start with what you changed. We reset the master baseline. She grimaced. It made everything worse. It would, I said. You told the system its memory didn't matter. Jordan hovered behind her, hands in pockets. We were drowning. You were thrashing, I said. Different thing. A tech rolled in a cart of cardiac monitors. Batch 49F, he said softly, as if loud was illegal now. Okay, I said, flipping the first unit. We're not chasing green lights today. We're listening. I pointed to the vibration trace. Hear that? I asked Maya. I don't hear anything. You will. Watch the pattern, then the temperature drift. It's not noise. It's a sentence. She leaned closer. It rises just before the thermal check. Because the fan compensation overshoots. The unit's fine, but the false spike trips the fail window, because your window contracted when you reset the baseline. I looked up. The system trusts history more than hope. It's designed that way. Maya's eyes flicked to mine. You did that on purpose. Yes. Hope kills quality. I moved through the protocol the way I'd written it. Stabilize, then tighten, check dampers, calibrate in sequence, not in panic. Verify with a known good unit before touching the thresholds. I let Maya's hands do the work, correcting her grip, showing her where to pause, making her say out loud what she saw. The lab shifted around us, from frantic to focused. The air changed. By mid-morning, the first units passed under the tightened window. The right way, not the lazy way. A small cheer stuttered, then died when people remembered things were still broken. I didn't celebrate. Passing was the floor, not the ceiling. Alan appeared in the doorway. Progress? Some, I said, but it's brittle until the documentation is live. It's going out now, he said. Where do you want it sent? Everywhere. If a person touches a unit, they get the guide. His gaze flicked to the corridor. I followed it. Devin stood there with a folder, expression carefully neutral. He stepped in, clearing his throat. Mandy, he said, good to see you back. I'm not back, I said. I'm working. He angled the folder like a prop. We'll need you in a debrief at 2. HR has... No, I didn't raise my voice. My terms included no meetings with HR. Color rose in his neck. We still need to discuss... What you need, I said, is to deliver the packet attached to my resignation. The one you told everyone was irrelevant. Alan's eyes cut to him. Devin opened his mouth, closed it, and retreated without a word. Maya looked at me, then at Alan. He told us the attachment was boilerplate. Said you were... emotional. Emotional people write 20-page calibration guides, I said dryly. Let's keep working. For the next hours, I taught. Not the trick, the discipline. I drew the flow on a whiteboard, where loops closed, where humans could lie to themselves. I made them run the sequences out of order so they'd feel the wrongness in their hands, not just see it on a screen. I let them fail in the ways the system expected, so the memory of correction would stick when I wasn't there. The lab exhaled together when a clean run stayed clean under stress. That sound, relief earned, has a pitch your bones learn. At 2, Alan called me to his office. He shut the door gently, like noise would break something. "You've stabilized us," he said. "It isn't solved, but it's no longer free fall." "Good," I said. "Then the documentation can take over." He slid a new folder toward me. Heavier, cream paper, embossed. "This is an offer. Director of Quality. Full authority. Compensation at the top of our band, I didn't touch it. I told you my terms. One day. Documentation delivered." Then I decide his shoulders slumped, then straightened. "You're right. I'm asking anyway." "Alan," I said, and the weariness in my own voice surprised me. "It's not just money. It's respect on boring days. It's not having to fight every time I say no." "I can promise culture changes," he said quietly. "Culture doesn't change by promise," I said. "It changes by practice." He nodded, eyes on the window. "Will you think about it?" "I will," I said, "after the line runs without me." Back in the lab, Maya was at the bench with Jordan, narrating the sequence to a junior tech. The rhythm sounded right. The smallest turns. As I packed my bag at the end of the shift, my phone vibrated, a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, then listened in the hallway. "Hi, Mandy. My name is Evelyn. I'm VP of Operations at Helix Care. We've heard about your day. If you're open to a conversation, I'd love to talk about building a quality program that actually listens to you." I stared at the screen, the lab's hum behind me. Replaceable, they'd said. Options, I thought. Tomorrow I'd decide what kind of air I wanted to breathe. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with 2 folders in front of me. One was Alan's, thick with promises and embossed with the company logo I'd once been proud to wear. The other was thinner, just a single page with a phone number scribbled on it. Evelyn from Helix Care. The weight difference was misleading. One folder was full of "we've learned our lesson." The other was full of possibility. I poured myself a glass of wine and stared at both until the edges blurred. My phone buzzed again. Texts from Maya. "We're holding steady. Documentation is helping." "Thank you." "Alan is furious at Devin. Something's coming. Don't disappear on us yet, please." Her words tugged at me more than the folders did. I cared about Maya, Jordan, the techs who'd stayed late when no one asked. But caring about them didn't mean chaining myself to a place that only recognized my worth when the floor caved in. The next morning, I called Evelyn. Her voice was brisk but warm. "Mandy, I'm glad you reached out. I'll be direct. We're growing fast at Helix Care, and we need a quality leader who sees what others miss. Your name's been coming up all week. I pinched the bridge of my nose." "You already heard?" "Industry gossip," she said simply. "Suppliers talk. Clients talk. When a competitor's production grinds to a halt because they ignored their own specialist, people notice." The bluntness almost made me laugh. "And what exactly would you want from me?" "Your system. But more importantly, your mind. We'd hire you as Director of Quality Programs. Full autonomy. Your work would be recognized in patents and credited to you, not buried in a department memo." Her words sliced right through me. Recognized. Credited. Not hidden. "Would I own my work?" I asked. "You'd own it," she said without hesitation. "We'd protect it legally, and you'd benefit from any licensing agreements." For a long moment, I didn't speak. The smallest turns decide what runs and what fails. Maybe this was one of them. Later that day, Alan called again. His voice was tight, controlled. "Mandy, I know you're considering offers. Before you decide, I want you to hear this directly from me. Devin is finished. The board stripped him of decision-making authority this morning." I stayed silent. "You were right," he continued. "The attachment you left should have prevented all of this." He hid it, lied about it. I can't undo the damage, but I can make sure it never happens again. Alan, I said carefully, it's not just Devin. He's a symptom. The disease is pretending people are interchangeable. I understand, he said, voice dropping. That's why the board approved a revised package. Vice President of Quality, reporting directly to me. Triple-year-old salary. A seat at the executive table, I closed my eyes. That was power, influence, a title that could change everything. And yet, part of me recoiled. It was still tied to the place that laughed at me until they choked on their own mistake. That evening, I met Maya for coffee. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. But when she saw me, relief softened her face. You saved us, she said simply. I gave you tools, I corrected. You saved yourselves. She shook her head. No, without you, we would have shipped failures. Patients could have been hurt. You kept that from happening, even after they pushed you out. Her words landed heavier than Alan's offer or Evelyn's promise. So what do you want from me, Maya? I asked. Not to forget us, she said. We're not Devin. We care. We need someone who sees the cracks before they break. You've always been that person, I swallowed hard. Caring was dangerous. It made walking away harder. When I got home, another email waited from Evelyn. Formal offer attached. Take your time, but we'd like to move quickly. We believe in building with people who want to be valued, not tolerated. And beneath that, a single line. Don't go back to a place that only noticed your worth when it was too late. I sat on the porch until the sky turned purple, folders spread across my lap. Alan's, promising recognition inside the same walls that once suffocated me. Evelyn's, offering ownership and a clean slate. Maya's quiet plea in the back of my mind. I realized the choice wasn't between two jobs. It was between two versions of myself. The one who accepted belated respect, or the one who claimed her value outright. I closed both folders. Tomorrow, I would decide. But tonight, I let myself breathe. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to hand me my worth. It was mine. Always had been. I woke before the alarm, not from anxiety, but from the clarity that shows up when you finally stop bargaining with yourself. I brewed coffee, opened both offers on the table, and wrote 2 emails. To Alan, thank you for the offer and for correcting what you could. I'm declining. This isn't about salary or title. It's about building somewhere that treats quality like oxygen, not overhead. To Evelyn, I accept. On one condition. My methods remain mine. I want the agreement to recognize authorship and allow limited licensing to past employers strictly to protect workers and patients, not management's pride. Her reply arrived before my mug cooled. Agreed on authorship. Drafting language now for a narrow license right. Your call on whether to extend it. I exhaled. Decisions are just turns, I thought. Small, but they change the route. I called Alan next. He answered on the first ring. Mandy? I'm joining Helix Care, I said. I wish it had been different. For what it's worth, I'm willing to license my protocols to you under strict terms. Implementation oversight by production and engineering, quarterly training for the QA team, and a clause that forbids HR from gatekeeping the documentation. If you accept, you can stabilize without gambling with patient safety silent stretched, then the soft scrape of a chair. You're still protecting us, he said. I'm protecting the people who never had a voice in that room, I said, and the patients who will never know our names. He cleared his throat. Send the terms. I'll take them to the board today. I emailed the draft license. Measurable outcomes, renewal contingent on training completion, audit rights if anyone tried to simplify the sequence into a useless checklist. No empire building, no foot on anyone's throat. Just a fair price that reflected real value and a path that left dignity intact. By noon, legal at Helix Care had mirrored the authorship language in my offer. By evening, their contract and my license proposal were both signed. The next morning, Maya texted a single line. "Thank you for not leaving a crater." 2 weeks later, I started at Helix Care. My office wasn't large, but the door was mostly glass. No fortress vibe, no corner kingdom. I met the floor teams first, then the software folks, then the procurement leads who played the quiet game of keeping promises. I pinned a printout above my desk. Quality is the discipline of telling the truth early. No one rolled their eyes. The first task was documentation. Real documentation, not the museum plaque version. We built checklists that told you why before how, and playbooks that included the "when it feels wrong" column that no ISO auditor asks for, but every good tech uses. I hired a quiet kid named Layla who could hear bearings through plastic and a former paramedic who'd seen what close enough looked like when it failed. We fought with data and patience, not volume. And when an early batch of infusion pumps murmured trouble at a threshold everyone else missed, we halted the line before the sunrise shift. We caught it. It never left the building. No drama, just motion that made sense. Mid-quarter, Alan called. "The board approved the license," he said. "We've restarted at controlled capacity." "Devin," he hesitated. "He's been reassigned to vendor paperwork and compliance reporting. He'll be the point of contact for quarterly metrics on your license." I pressed the phone to my shoulder and smiled despite myself. "If he has questions, the documentation is explicit," I said. "Anyone can follow it, if they decide to learn." "Message received," he said quietly. The months settled into a rhythm. Work that respected the truth, teams that argued to get it right instead of to win. On a rainy Thursday, a courier delivered a thick envelope to my office. Midwest's first quarterly report, signed by Devin. It included the metrics I'd specified. Baseline drift variance, false fail rate, corrective action lag. At the bottom, in a hand steadier than mine would have been in his place, a note. Documentation received. Processes updated. Payments remitted as per agreement. No gloating. Just a ledger that finally told the truth. That weekend, I took my daughter to the park. She raced her scooter along the river path while I sat on a bench, the envelope beside me like a closed chapter. A man nearby struggled with a stubborn stroller latch. I leaned over, twisted the catch a quarter turn, and it clicked into place. He looked up, surprised. "How did you know?" "The smallest turns," I said, and felt my father's grin rise in me. Back at work, Layla taped a handwritten sign above the main bench. "We don't ship hope." It made visitors blink, then nod. When the industry conference rolled around, I presented a short talk titled "Designing Systems That Don't Need Heroes." No crescendo, no revenge slideshow. Just steps, examples, the discipline of listening to what the machine and the people were saying before it broke. After, in the hallway, I ran into Alan. He looked tired but lighter. "Your license kept us afloat," he said. "We should have done right sooner." "Do right now," I said. "Make the documentation sacred. Promote the people who tell you no." He nodded. "Devin sends your report to the board personally. I think it hurts, but he does it right." "Good," I said. "Accuracy is a kind of respect." On my way out, a young engineer stopped me by the escalator. "I watched your talk," she blurted. "Last month I told my manager we needed to hold a shipment. He said I was overreacting. I held it anyway." "You made me feel less crazy," I swallowed. "You weren't crazy. You were careful." That night, I wrote a sentence at the end of our team's playbook. Care is not a soft skill. The final license payment of the year hit my account with another packet of metrics and a cover letter. This time from Alan. "We're instituting your training cadence as policy. Documentation will be a release blocker. Thank you for not letting our worst day define our next year." I closed the envelope and put it with the others. A stack not of trophies, but of receipts. Proof that telling the truth early and insisting on terms that last changes more than balance sheets. People still underestimate what they don't understand. They still call careful people difficult until careful is the only thing standing between a patient and an avoidable mistake. But here, in rooms that listen, The work lands. It protects strangers we'll never meet. It tells the story for us. They said they could replace me tomorrow. Maybe they can replace a person. They can't replace a practice. Not one built on small right turns, insisted on every day. And if this story found you at a moment when someone laughed at your worth, don't wait for the room to wake up. Write your terms, protect your work. Choose the places where care is currency, not charity. Then let the results say your name, quarter after quarter, long after the noise dies down. The words cut through me like cold steel. You're done here. Declan didn't even flinch when he said it, his smirk sharper than the termination letter clutched in his hand. Around the boardroom table, not a single pair of eyes dared to meet mine. 8 years of sacrifice, late nights, weekends traded for server rooms, gone. All because I missed one thing, a birthday party. I walked out in silence, my heels clicking against the polished floor like punctuation marks to a sentence I hadn't written. I didn't look back. If I did, I might have shattered right there in front of them. But inside, one thought carved itself into me like fire against ice. This wasn't an ending. It was ignition. Hours earlier, the choice seemed so small, almost laughable. A harmless email had slid into my inbox. Mandatory attendance. Declan's birthday gala. Mandatory. For a party. I stared at it for too long, the glow of the screen reflecting off my half-empty coffee cup. Declan Ainsworth, the CEO's nephew. Entitled Thin Resume, Inflated Ego, he thrived on these events, where champagne replaced work and loyalty was measured by how loudly you clapped. But me, I was buried in something bigger. On my screen pulsed the last line of a security algorithm, 8 years in the making. My creation. My heartbeat translated into code, a billion-dollar system that was about to become the backbone of every global contract we touched. I whispered to myself, not tonight. The party would pass. The system couldn't wait. My phone buzzed against the desk, dragging me out of my focus. A message from my mom. Sweetheart, dinner tonight? Please? My chest tightened. She'd been in and out of the hospital for weeks, and guilt pulled at me like an anchor. I typed back quickly. Tomorrow, I promise, just need to finish this update. It wasn't a lie. This patch wasn't optional. Without it, the next board meeting would be war. My work wasn't just another product, it was protection. It was survival. Another ping. A Slack message from a colleague. Word is, Declan hates anyone who skips his parties. He calls it a loyalty test. A loyalty test? My lips curled into a bitter smile. I was loyal to the work, not his ego. But before I could reply, another message flashed. Careful, Laura. I glanced at the clock. 9:45 p.m., I turned back to my code. If this was truly a test, I'd already chosen my side. The next morning, I stepped into a room colder than winter. Declan stood at the head of the table, his navy suit pressed, his expression dripping with triumph. His uncle, the CEO, sat with arms folded, stone-faced. Laura, Declan said, drawing out my name like it tasted bitter. Thanks for joining us on such short notice. I gripped the back of a chair, waiting for context. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face still. As of this morning, he said, voice smooth as glass. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. For a second, the words didn't land. Terminated? My mind scrambled. Budget cuts? Restructuring? But no. His smirk told the truth. You've shown a lack of commitment, he continued. Skipping last night's event? Not a good look for someone in your position. We need team players who respect our culture. My throat burned. I was the culture. For 8 years, I built the architecture that protected this empire. While others played politics, I played firewall. patching vulnerabilities they never even noticed. And now I was disposable, erased by a man whose biggest achievement was blowing out candles on a cake. I wanted to scream, to call out the absurdity, to fight. But outbursts don't win wars. Silence does. So I smiled faintly, even as the floor tilted beneath me. But Declan wasn't finished. He leaned across the table, his eyes glittering with cruelty. "Don't ever think you're more important than my family." It wasn't a warning. It was a declaration. My work, my sacrifices, my mother's mounting hospital bills. None of it mattered. Not compared to his bloodline. I gathered my things, the scrape of the chair loud in the suffocating silence. Declan watched me the whole way, his smirk never faltering. And as the door shut behind me, one thought detonated inside me like thunder. You just made the cost of loyalty unbearable, Declan. And you're about to pay every cent. On my desk, an envelope waited like an execution order. Cream-colored, embossed with the company's logo, my name typed in bold. Beside it, my monitor glared white with a single line of text. Your access has been revoked. 8 years. Erased with one sentence. The office hummed with false normalcy. Phones rang, keyboards clacked, but no one looked at me. The same people who once praised me for saving multi-million-dollar contracts suddenly found the floor tiles fascinating. I tore the envelope open. 2 pages of sterile legal jargon. Return your badge by end of day. That was it. No thank you. No acknowledgement of the billions I had safeguarded. Just an order to disappear. My fingers dug into the paper until the edge cut my skin. I wanted to storm back into that boardroom, slam the agreement on the table, and spit Declan's arrogance back in his face. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I packed slowly, every click of my keyboard echoing in my skull like a countdown. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 5 words that stopped my breath. Leave the building. Cafe 27. And then a name. Jonas Hale. The man who'd vanished a year ago. The former CFO. The strategist who once knew every secret this company buried. If Jonas was reaching out now, it meant only one thing. My story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The bell above Cafe 27's door chimed as I stepped inside, clutching the cream envelope like a guilty secret. The place was nearly empty, just the soft hum of the espresso machine and 2 baristas trading gossip near the counter. My eyes swept the room until they landed on him. Jonas Hale. He sat in the far corner, charcoal coat draped over the chair, silver hair catching the morning light. He hadn't aged so much as he'd hardened, like time had chiseled him into stone. When his eyes met mine, sharp as ever, I felt my pulse stumble. "Laura," he said, rising slightly to pull out the chair across from him. "Sit." I lowered myself into the seat, my hands tight around the envelope. My throat felt dry. Jonas had disappeared a year ago with no farewell speech, no LinkedIn update, no whisper of his next move. One day he was CFO of the company, architect of billion-dollar acquisitions. The next he was gone. The rumor mill said he retired quietly, but I never believed it. "You're wondering why I called?" he said, voice measured. I nodded. Words felt fragile in my mouth. Jonas leaned in, elbows resting on the table, his tone calm but deliberate. Before I walked out of that building, I set something in motion. "For you? For me?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. He smiled faintly, like a man savoring a secret. "When you started building that algorithm, I knew its value. And I knew people like Declan wouldn't protect you if politics got ugly. So I built you a safety net." I frowned, sifting through old memories. Late nights when Jonas shoved compliance stacks across my desk, insisting I read the fine print. I'd skimmed, trusting him. "What kind of net?" I asked cautiously. "A trust," Jonas said. "It holds an LLC, Callaway Systems. 6 months ago, you signed the papers without realizing. Buried in those compliance documents. If you ever left voluntarily, nothing would change. But if you were removed without cause, like you were yesterday, the LLC assumes ownership of your work. Every patent, every line of code. The words hit harder than Declan's smirk. My throat went dry. You're saying... Jonas reached into his coat and pulled out a small silver USB drive. He slid it across the table. The metal caught the sunlight, gleaming like a loaded weapon. Everything is on here. Your system, your patents, the licensing keys. As of this morning, the company has no enforceable claim. Legally, it belongs to you. My fingers closed around the drive. Its weight was electric in my palm. They fired you thinking they'd humiliate you, Jonas said quietly. Instead, they handed you the match that's about to set their house on fire. I sat back, heart pounding. I wanted to believe him, but my mind raced with questions. Could this really hold up? Contracts, patents, trusts. This wasn't the stuff I'd ever paid attention to. I built systems, not legal loopholes. They'll fight this, I whispered. Declan won't just roll over. Of course not, Jonas said. But they can't win. The patent is already approved, tied to the LLC. Their flagship product is locked without renewal keys. You hold those keys now. They'll try paperwork, threats, maybe even smear campaigns. None of it matters. They're trapped. I exhaled shakily, pressing the USB into my palm like an anchor. For the first time since that boardroom ambush, something other than despair flickered inside me. Not rage, not fear, something sharper. Hope. What do I do? I asked. Jonas leaned back, studying me. You decide how much you want them to bleed. Sell the rights to a competitor, negotiate from a position of power, or shut them down completely. The choice is yours. I stared at him, the enormity settling in. For years, I'd been the firewall that protected their empire. Now, I was the storm that could dismantle it. But another thought pressed harder against my chest. My mother. Her hospital bills had nearly drained me. Without my job's insurance, every treatment would push us deeper into debt. Declan thought firing me would corner me, force me to beg. Instead, he'd just handed me leverage worth hundreds of millions. I slipped the USB into my bag and forced my breathing steady. What's the first move? Jonas's lips curved into a knowing smile. Patience. Let them realize what they've done. By the end of today, the system will lock. Every executive, every VP, every stakeholder will see the alerts. Then we'll move. I glanced down at my hands. They weren't shaking anymore. The fear was still there, coiled tight. But now it had purpose. Jonas stood, slipping his coat over his shoulders. Stay invisible for now. Don't answer their calls. Don't react. Rage is a weapon, Laura, but only if you know when to draw it. He left me with those words, the bell above the cafe door chiming softly as he disappeared into the street. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty chair across from me, the envelope still on the table, the USB heavy in my bag. Outside, the city roared with its usual noise, oblivious to the chaos that was about to erupt 13 floors above my old office. For the first time in 8 years, I wasn't defending someone else's empire. I was holding the fuse to blow it apart. And when the first alert hit their inboxes, they'd realize I wasn't gone. I was the reckoning they never saw coming. By the time I got home that afternoon, the storm had already started. My phone buzzed nonstop on the counter, vibrating across the surface like it was alive. Emails, missed calls, Slack notifications, all from people who hadn't dared look at me in the office that morning. I didn't touch it. I sat with a glass of water, staring at the USB drive on the table, the silver casing glinting under the kitchen light. At 2:11 p.m., the first subject line made me laugh out loud, a sound sharp and bitter in my quiet apartment. System alert. Deployment license expired. Please contact Callaway Systems for renewal. Not just my inbox. Every executive, every VIP, every department head who thought today was business as usual. Their entire global network had frozen in place. Updates suspended, patches locked, expansion projects stalled. All roads pointed to me, or rather to Callaway Systems, the LLC they didn't even realize existed until now. By 2:30, financial reporters were tweeting about unexpected outages at Ainsworth Global. I scrolled through the noise, calm on the outside, while something volcanic churned beneath my ribs. Inside that glass tower, I imagined the panic spreading like fire. Executives barking at IT teams, directors demanding answers. Declan's smug grin curdling into something ugly when he realized the empire he thought he controlled was in someone else's hands. Mine. The phone buzzed again, this time a voicemail. My hand hovered, but I didn't press play. I didn't need to. I could picture it clearly. Declan's voice, sharp with manufactured authority, demanding my cooperation. Maybe even a threat slipped between words. But Jonas's advice echoed in my head. Stay invisible. Rage is a weapon, Laura, but only if you know when to draw it. So I let it ring. By evening, news outlets were running with it. Unprecedented disruption. Internal turmoil. One headline even dared. Has Ainsworth Global lost control of its own system? I closed my laptop and leaned back on the couch. Exhaustion pressing down, but not enough to smother the quiet satisfaction rising inside me. For years, I'd sacrificed birthdays, weekends, dinners with Mom, all for that system. And in one arrogant decision, Declan had tried to erase me. Instead, he'd handed me leverage worth hundreds of millions. The next morning, I imagined the boardroom looked nothing like the polished sanctuary I'd sat in 2 days earlier. Reports said the CEO had cut his vacation short. Declan sat beside him, pale beneath his perfect tan, sleeves rolled up like a man on the edge. I could almost hear the IT chief stammering as he projected error screens across the wall. Every node requires a renewal key from Callaway Systems. Without it, we can't push updates, can't patch vulnerabilities, can't guarantee compliance. Then silence. Heavy, suffocating. Until Declan exploded. She can't do this. She signed a standard work for hire agreement. Except I hadn't. Jonas had made sure of that. The general counsel's voice would have been cool, detached. Actually, she didn't. Laura negotiated an IP carve-out clause tied to performance benchmarks. She met them all. The patents filed under Callaway Systems are enforceable. Legally, we have no claim I pictured the CEO's face draining of color, then flushing crimson. We funded her salary. We paid for the infrastructure. That system belongs to us. Not according to the contracts, the lawyer would reply. And right about then, someone in that room would have realized the truth. They hadn't just fired me. They had freed me. At 11:04 a.m., my phone buzzed with a new email. Subject line, strategic opportunity. It was from a competitor. Helix Dynamics. Short, polite, but urgent. We'd like to discuss licensing options for the Callaway Systems algorithm. Mid-9 figures, hundreds of millions. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. It wasn't just vindication. It was survival. Mom's hospital bills, my drained savings. The years of sacrifice they'd tried to bury under an envelope and a revoked badge. The decision didn't take long. 10 minutes later, I replied. Confirming availability. Let's meet. My reflection in the laptop screen looked calm, almost serene. No one could see the storm inside me. The fury, the relief, the hunger for justice. The company thought they'd humiliated me. Instead, they'd activated the safety net Jonas had woven months before. By lunchtime, legal teams were scrambling, PR departments were drafting emergency statements, and investors were calling for answers. And me? I was sipping coffee in my kitchen, watching their empire unravel, one system alert at a time. That afternoon, another email arrived. This one from the CEO himself. Laura, let's discuss terms. You have 48 hours. I smiled. Finally, they understood. The countdown had begun. The email from the CEO sat on my screen like a dare. Laura, let's discuss terms. You have 48 hours, 2 days. That was all it took for panic to break through their arrogance. I didn't reply immediately. I closed my laptop, slid it into my bag, and walked to the corner cafe. Silence is strategy. Every extra hour without an answer tightened the noose. By the time I arrived, financial reporters were circling like sharks. Articles spoke of leadership turmoil and system paralysis. Declan's name appeared more than once, usually followed by words like nepotism and reckless. His golden boy shine was cracking. That evening, Jonas called. His tone was calm, but underneath I heard the satisfaction. They'll push hard tomorrow. Don't bend. They'll think filing emergency patents or contracts can save them. It won't. He was right. The next morning, my phone lit up with forwarded messages from contacts still inside. The boardroom had turned into a pressure cooker. The general counsel laid out a fragile plan. File an emergency patent. Argue prior ownership because the company had funded my salary and infrastructure. Risky, she'd admitted. But it's our only option. Declan, desperate for control, had seized it. Do it. File it now. We'll bury her in paperwork before she can blink. If only he knew. By 10 a.m., my phone buzzed with a push notification. USPTO filing confirmation. Callaway Systems, patent number 1,189,472. Approved 2 weeks ago. I exhaled slowly, almost laughing. Jonas and I had set the trap months earlier. They weren't chasing a loophole. They were running headfirst into a brick wall. Minutes later, another alert appeared. Emergency filing rejected. Existing registration on record. I pictured Declan's face when those words landed in front of him. His smirk fading, his bravado collapsing. I imagined the board shifting uncomfortably while the CEO's temper exploded across the room. Jonas messaged me a single word. Beautiful. I let myself smile. That afternoon, Helix Dynamics confirmed our meeting. The Grand Meridian Hotel. Ironic, considering it was the same place Declan had thrown his birthday gala just a week earlier. The party that started all this. Walking through the hotel's marble lobby, I kept my expression controlled. Cameras flashed nearby as journalists loitered, hunting for scraps of truth. I didn't stop. They didn't know my name yet. They would. Inside the suite, Helix's CEO greeted me with a firm handshake. Miss Callaway, we've admired your work for years. What happened at Ainsworth Global? Their loss is our opportunity. I sat across from him, smoothing my jacket, my voice steady. I'm not here to discuss the past. I'm here to discuss numbers. The negotiations were clinical, almost cold. Lawyers scribbled notes. Analysts whispered over spreadsheets. The first offer slid across the table. $320 million for global licensing rights, with expansion into 3 continents. I traced the figures with my eyes, keeping my face neutral. Inside, my pulse raced, but I remembered Jonas's advice. Control isn't in the reaction. It's in restraint. Well, review, I said calmly, standing. But know this, I'm not in a rush. The longer this drags, the more leverage I have. The CEO nodded, impressed. He knew I was right. Back at home, I drafted an email to the Ainsworth CEO. Subject, license renewal. Body, you have 48 hours. After that, the value of your company begins to evaporate. Choose wisely. No threats, no drama. Just a deadline and a truth they couldn't outrun. By the following morning, I heard the board had gathered again, this time with emergency legal teams. Stacks of contracts and laptops cluttered the polished table where I used to sit. Declan looked worn, his tie loosened, eyes bloodshot. We can fight this, he insisted. She's smart, but not invincible. The lawyer's response was sharp. With respect, Declan, she outmaneuvered us months ago. Every patent is filed. Every clause airtight. The LLC owns everything. The CEO rubbed his temples, voice hoarse. So what do we do? Silence. For the first time, I imagined they truly saw me. Not as an employee to discard, but as the storm they had created. That afternoon, the CEO finally replied to my message. His tone was stripped of arrogance. Laura, We're ready to negotiate. I closed the laptop slowly, savoring the moment. Declan had wanted to test my loyalty. He'd succeeded, just not in the way he expected. The 48-hour clock was ticking, and now every second belonged to me. They walked into the conference room like men still pretending to own the room. The CEO's stride was stiff, his jaw locked tight. Beside him, Declan looked pale, his perfect tan now a fragile mask. The arrogance that once dripped from him was gone, replaced by the brittle shell of a man who knew the ground beneath him was crumbling. I sat at the center of the table, calm, composed, a glass of water untouched at my side. Jonas sat to my left, his presence radiating quiet power, the kind that comes from already knowing the ending. Neither of us rose to greet them. That in itself was a victory. "Laura," the CEO said finally, his voice tight as wire. "We're here to make this right." I tilted my head slightly. Right for whom? Declan leaned forward, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Let's not drag this out. We're prepared to—" Jonas cut in, his voice smooth and firm. "Sit down." It wasn't a suggestion. They obeyed. Jonas reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick document. He dropped it on the polished table with a sound that cracked like a gunshot. The CEO flinched. Declan's eyes darted to the bold header. Irrevocable trust agreement. "This," Jonas began, his tone like cold steel, "was executed under Delaware law 6 months ago. It holds one asset, Callaway Systems, and that LLC now owns every patent, every line of code, every licensing key Laura created." "That's impossible," the CEO snapped. "It's binding," Jonas replied, unflinching. "You signed the original carve-out clauses yourself. I advised you to protect her. Instead, you let nepotism dictate your decisions. This," he tapped the document with a single finger, "is the price of arrogance." For the first time, Declan's composure cracked. "She was an employee." She can," I said quietly, folding my hands on the table. "And she did." The CEO slumped back, eyes glassy as the math hit him. Hundreds of millions evaporated. Contracts stalled. Investors circling like vultures. I leaned forward, my voice steady. "You didn't just fire me. You freed me, and now your empire runs on something you don't control." The room went silent, thick as smoke. Declan's mouth opened, but no words came. The CEO rubbed his temples, defeated. Jonas sat back, calm as ever, because he knew what I knew. The fight was already over. 2 days later, I walked into the Grand Meridian's largest conference hall. Chandeliers glittered overhead, cameras flashed, and reporters craned for a glimpse of the story they'd been chasing all week. At the long table draped in navy silk, a plaque bore my name in crisp black letters. Chief Innovation Officer, Callaway Systems. I paused for a heartbeat, letting the weight of those words settle. Then I walked forward, every click of my heels echoing like punctuation marks in a sentence 8 years in the making. Across the hall, lenses swung toward me, shutters firing in rapid bursts. A week ago, I was slipping out of my office with nothing but an envelope in hand. Today, I was the headline. I smoothed the fabric of my jacket and looked straight into the cameras. My reflection glimmered in the dark glass of their lenses. Calm, poised, unshakable. The Helix Dynamics CEO stepped to the podium. His voice carried across the room. "We are proud to announce a historic licensing agreement with Callaway Systems. Valuation, $940 million. Applause erupted. The room flashed with light. I remembered Declan's words in that boardroom, smug and venomous. "Don't ever think you're more important than my family." I let the memory linger, then smiled. Slow, deliberate. Into the microphone, I spoke softly. "You were right, Declan. Family is everything. Yours just lost it all to me." The crowd roared. Somewhere in the back, a journalist's voice cut through the noise. "Ms. Callaway, How does it feel to hold the future of an entire industry in your hands? I looked straight into the nearest lens. Every sacrifice, every late night, every moment with my mother I'd traded flashing through my mind. It feels, I said, voice steady, like the beginning. The cameras exploded with light. And for the first time in years, the storm inside me went still. They underestimated me because I stayed quiet, because I didn't play their games. What they didn't understand is that silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Your worth is never defined by the people who fail to see it. You are not disposable. You are not replaceable. And when someone tries to erase you, that's your cue to pick up the pen and write the next chapter yourself. So if you've ever been doubted, pushed aside, or made to feel invisible, let this be your reminder. Power isn't gone. It's waiting. And when the time comes, use it with precision.